All right, everyone. How's it going? Hope you're all doing well today. I think I'm a little hot on the signal there. All right, so thanks for being here. So today we are going to talk about an 8-bar blues. So first things right off the top. First thing, all my courses, of course, are on sale on my website, Jeff-McErlain.com, the new revamped website. If you haven't checked it out, please do so. I think it looks pretty cool, and I can easily update it now. So if you dig that live, 20 and all the courses are 20% off. Few announcements. I have background tracks for sale. Some of you guys already picked those up, so those are available on my website as well. 14 live band background tracks for 10 big bucks. So if you want to pick those up, that really helps me out quite a bit. Phil moderating. So thanks to Phil, everybody. Say hi. As you already have, has been checking out the chat. Everybody's already talking to Phil. So. All right, and the next thing, I just want to mention, I did a really fun interview for the Guitar Channel out of Paris, France, and I put the link in my description. I just added it in, and it's also in the chat. I added it in. Just a kind of fun hour-long interview. Well, I thought it was fun. Hour-long interview with me, talking about all sorts of stuff, the record with Robin, guitars, and all of that. So if you want to check it out, it's usually a pay service, so that's a private link or a link he gave so I can give out to people. So people go, how come there's only 20 views? That's why, because he usually has a pay service. It's a Guitar Channel, and his name is Pierre, and he's out of Paris, France, and it was fun. Okay, so let's talk about this tune. You guys probably know, let's talk a little bit of history. It's Things About Going My Way, Sitting on Top of the World, Charley Patton's version of Some Sunny Day. Cream does a version of Sitting on Top of the World. They do it in a different key. So it's a really famous tune, Tampa Red. And the melody is really pretty old. I can't play the melody. I don't know if it's copywritten. So if I get a copyright on it, then boom, you know. So the melody, the first tune of Sitting on Top of the World is by a group called the Mississippi Sheiks. And I'm a big Delta blues and old blues fan. So I highly recommend you go back and check out the history of these tunes, because it's really cool to see how they've progressed over time. So the Mississippi Sheiks, that was in 1930. Al Jolson did a version of this melody as well, if you guys probably know the melody that I'm talking about. Tampa Red, who is a great slide guitar player, he does a really awesome version of it. Things About Going My Way is another title for the song, like I said. The Grateful Dead does a version. Jack White apparently did a version of it on, I think, the Cold Mountain soundtrack. And Howlin Wolf. And then one of the first versions I had heard was the Howlin Wolf. And then the Howlin Wolf version that he does with Eric Clapton, the British session. So just go check it out. So I thought what was so cool about the song when I was younger and I learned it, I was playing, I'm going, whoa, this is a 9-bar blues. So there's generally two kinds of blues we encounter. We're going to have the 12-bar blues, which is our standard sort of thing. We can make that a jazz blues. That would include things like Stormy Monday or Crossroads. 8-bar blues, there's a few of those. The most famous 8-bar blues at the top of my head would be Key to the Highway. Those kind of changes. It would be like a, yeah. So that's 8 bars. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, so that's Key to the Highway. I would say that's your most famous 8-bar blues. If you look back in some of the live feeds, I had done Someday After a While You'll Be Sorry, an 8-bar blues with the bridge. And that's the Freddie King tune, but it's also a ton of other tunes. So an 8-bar blues with the bridge, I've done it. And it's in my background tracks too on my Bandcamp site, so my website. Someday After a While, I'll Survive by B.B. King. Geez, tons of tunes. So now this is a 9-bar blues. So if we check it out, I'll play it real slow. We have 1 major, 1/7, E7. A major to A minor. And 1, full bar of 5. 2 beats each way. A to B. Here's the extra bar, watch. So if you're playing this with the band and they don't know it, that this is coming up, you're in a lot of trouble. So as Angus Clark was saying, if they're playing a 12-bar, I don't know what kind of math he was working there, but it works. You have to tell, if you're going to play Sitting on Top of the World, everybody's got to kind of know it. Oh, and while I'm thinking of it, if you search out Eric Johnson, Sitting on Top of the World, there's a live version of it from the 90s, and it's one of the most amazing playing I've ever heard of his. I'll put a link to it when I get off in the description. It's unbelievable. Okay, so I just got a little annoying piece of paper down here. I should have written this out, but I didn't. Okay, so very professional. Just got my chart here. So I don't know if any of you guys can see that. No, probably not. I should have been much more professional for this today. I'll send you a chart, but I'm just going to play the track, and I'm going to follow along with this really bad chart. I'm pro, totally pro. It's not even music paper. So, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's my second bar, E7. Now A major, 1, 2, 3, 4. A minor, 1, 2, 3, 4. E, 2, 3, B, 1. Now here's the A. 1, 2, B, 3, 4, E, A, E, E7. Okay, so like I said, sorry about the crappy chart. So now I'll play through it, and the main little lick that we want to get in there, which is really kind of cool, is this thing at the end. You know, this. I could play it here. Right, so that's what we play on bar 9. The melody is what makes this tune. Okay, Phil, I'm going to rewrite it right now on live TV. Phil's saying, rewrite it. No, you guys can follow along. I'll find a chart and I'll post it easily. I can't do it now. I didn't even think about writing a chart. So, all right, so we've got E7. Talk about some of the voices in A major, A minor, E, E7, A to B, E7, E, extra bar. Okay. Now, what's a lot of fun about this tune is we can start to create a line that goes through it, as opposed to just playing those chords. Now, you want to learn them even in open chords. I can play a little more bluesy, though it is blues. I'll throw in a few little kind of things that sound kind of cool. Throw a little fill on the E7 chord, watch. Here's E7. There we go. Mess of the chart. Perfect. Live television. All right. So I'm playing E to E7. Let's just take a look at the cool thing we can do there. So we're going to have this line that starts and creates in the song. So this is something that when we're playing these chord voicings, we might want to start to investigate. It happens naturally, but if you're thinking blocky chords, you might miss the cool stuff, right? So I have E. So let's take this to E7. I'm going to put that D in there as my melody note. Then to A major. There's my C sharp. To A minor. To E again. Right? We have that B, which is really cool. So we have that line. It's almost like a turnaround, right? So let's hear that in the track and so put it on the top. That last thing it doesn't sound particularly bluesy. It sounds a little more, I don't know, 50s kind of, remind me of something like Sleepwalk there. But you can do that. You're not locked into playing it a certain way. But I want to really play up that little line. So I could play E major triad, right? That line again. You keep it in the middle. Right, so we're going to get this line. Well, look at that. So I could try to keep that line, and the second time through I put the line in the middle. Played E major, then I went to E7, put that G sharp on the top, right? Then I went to the A major, brought the A up and I played that C sharp. Now I want to get to that C. I could have done, that was just kind of nutty, so I just went to an A minor chord. So here's my A on top, there's my C as my melody note. So you're still hearing this line, right? That D sharp, now I can go the A, B, E. So I'm thinking about these triads and creating a little line inside the chord progression. All right, so is this making some sense? I hope. It's really a great way to start looking at it. I find one of these tunes like this is really useful for this, experimenting and finding the inside workings of how everything goes. All right, let me find my question stuff here. Okay, so now also when you're soloing over it, which I'm not really going to go too deep into today, you want to follow those same lines. You know, you start thinking about playing over those chord changes, like a little bit. Here's that E7. So I hit those changes, right? So as I'm soloing that, I always want to think about this. You can play blues though. Just pentatonic. BB's box stuff. It works, but I want to get that. Get that, you see. get messing this up today. I'm just going to take it ahead. So, sorry guys, just a little brain fart there again. Now what I want to think about as I go through these changes here, I want to find them in a bunch of different spots. A minor, I'm going to play E major, E7, A major, A minor, E. So what happened there? Right, E major, E7, I can go to A. So I kind of had this line that went from G sharp up to A. So as you start to examine it, there's all these inner workings of the chord progression that lend themselves to really nice lines that I think people overlook quite a bit. So this is one of those tunes you have to memorize, which is like you can see at the moment I just cheesed it like a few times. But hey, it's live. It's a great tune to call out on a gig because you don't hear it all that much. You want to make sure that everybody knows the changes. Those extra bar in there will really, really throw you off. Cream's version's a little heavier. They do it on Wheels of Fire. The one I would totally check out is the Howlin Wolf version. That's kind of the most classic one for blues guys. And then, like I said, the Mississippi Sheiks one, the Charley Patton, Some Sunny Day, is really cool. It's the same melody. I'm not sure he throws in an extra bar, but guys like Charley Patton and Robert Johnson throw an extra bar all the time because they were playing by themselves. They weren't really dealing with the band following them. It's like Dylan when he plays the solo acoustic stuff. There's these extra bars or extra beats here and there in tunes. So something to think about when you're playing this tune. I love Cream's version as well. And like I said, that great Eric Johnson version you should check out on somewhere on YouTube. It's live from a club in Austin, I believe. It might have been Antone's, I'm not sure. But it's amazing. Like Eric Johnson, completely on fire. Okay, so there you go. Things about going my way. Some Sunny Day. Lots of tunes sitting on top of the world. 9-bar blues. And that turnaround is a big thing to get. That move right there. Or, sorry, getting on that 5 chord again. So, there you go. 9-bar blues, definitely the odd man out on the gig. 8-bar blues, once again, key to the highway, as opposed to your regular 12-bar blues. All right, any questions, guys? All right, I'll say hi to everyone. We've got Keith, 5 Watt World. What's up, Keith? How's it going? Keith and I have just completed a video on train wreck amps, and I was lucky enough to supply the music. We have a Comet head over here, Aero 33 head, and a Dr. Z Z-Rec. Did some examples on those, and I did a little ripping on the top of that, and those are pretty killer amps. More high gain that I'm using, but they clean up great. So that should be a lot of fun. So check it out on Keith's channel. Because Keith needs help on his channel. He needs some followers. All right. Jason Laughlin, what's up, man? Oh, the train wreck will be out tomorrow. So tomorrow on Keith's channel. Jason Laughlin's here. Jason Carter. Zeta, what's up, Zeta? Martin Murray. It Hurts Me Too. Good point. Right. The melody is also It Hurts Me Too, but It Hurts Me Too doesn't have the extra bar. That was the tune that popped out of my head. So thank you so much for bringing it up. It is the melody for It Hurts Me Too, but they put in that extra bar. So that's what makes it different. If somebody says It Hurts Me Too, I won't put in the extra bar. So thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, sorry about the chart. I just threw it up. Apparently, Phil said he threw it up, the changes. Sorry. Thanks, Phil. All right, let's see, now we got some questions. Say hi to everybody who's here. Hey, Sean MacArthur, thanks so much, man, for the top chat there. Thanks, I appreciate it. Okay. Great. Let's go down to the bottom for some questions, if there are any. Tips on counting without having to count each beat. I get lost 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. One of the main things I would definitely think about when you're counting something like this, I would memorize it. I would just listen to a version of the tune, maybe have your scratched out little piece of paper there, and just follow along, like kind of follow the bouncing ball, and just feel where those changes are. If I'm playing the track, I'll be thinking, I don't think bar 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I just did that so we can hear that. I'm just thinking, well, now hear that E7, A major, A minor, back to E, B. This is where it always messes you up. So this track doesn't have a lot of the harmony, but if you check out some of the versions we talked about, you start listening to in your head like, okay, that's the change, that's the change. I don't think about bars when I'm playing, for sure. Just like I don't think about upbeats or downbeats necessarily. The more you practice it, the more comfortable you get with it. All right. All right. Not a lot of questions right now. All right, so let me just talk for a minute. I went through a big, huge Delta blues craze for a while when I was playing national, which I still kind of do, and I felt like I was serving a bunch of masters. When you got a bunch of good friends like David Hamburger who were great acoustic blues players, I just kind of let those guys run with it. The history of this stuff is really important. So some of the records are really hard to listen to sonically, like someone like Charley Patton, who I really love, but it's recorded in like 1932, if I remember right. Very rough quality to listen to when you want to put them on. But I do recommend, it's like the Robert Johnson recordings. I love them, but they're a bit of an acquired taste sonically because they're pretty lo-fi, and that's one of the beauty of them. And how they got all these recordings, where they kind of fell into obscurity, a lot of the blues guys. They were popular for a while, and then they, like I said, fell into obscurity. And then they were rediscovered in the 60s blues revival with guys like Jorma Kaukonen and Canned Heat and all those things. And then they started to become popular again with the guys like the Stones, bringing them to the forefront, the Yardbirds, Cream, and then they brought them to England and they were rediscovered. And a lot of these guys they found, like Son House, one of my favorites, was working at a factory in Rochester, New York. So the guys were just not doing much of anything. Guys like Muddy Waters, I don't remember what he was doing, but a lot of these guys were not doing music, certainly not professionally, until the 60s when bands like the Stones and like I said, Canned Heat and these people rediscovered them. So what happened was, all they had of these were the acetates or the records, and they started going down to the South and they were knocking on people's doors to find these old records. And so they just kept on trying to find the best ones they could find. So that's all that really exists. There's no like original recordings that are easily found. So usually what you're hearing is what they found by going to people's houses and record stores and looking for these old records. So sonically, some of these things are really kind of, it is what it is. A record that was from the 30s that was played all the time on a crappy, I don't want to say stereo system, crappy phonograph for years, and then they looked for the best ones they could get. So that's why when you put them on, you're like, oh, these are pretty rough. But historically speaking, it's really cool to dig into those, because then you hear where all the people that I love get the influences. And certainly, if you think of like Zeppelin, a lot of the lyrical stuff, it's taken from those old records. So, Robert Johnson was, I don't want to say fell into obscurity, but fairly until he was rediscovered by a lot of guys, the British blues people and the American blues revival. And so you can go on and see these great videos on the Newport Jazz Festival, Newport Jazz and Blues Festival. Those great black and white recordings. So I highly recommend you check those out online. Okay, so just want to mention a few other guys that I really love that you should think about checking out of that period. Certainly Robert Johnson, Son House, Skip James is one of my favorites. And Son House and Skip James started putting out records again in the 60s. So there's lots of different recordings. The early ones are pretty rough because they were from the 30s and 40s, and then again in the 60s. Bucka White, who's really cool, who is related to B.B. King. I think it's like a second cousin, if I remember right. So a lot of those Delta guys really influenced what I've been doing a lot, and I just think the history of it's so important. And you get into those sounds, and just knowing that, like, oh, this is like these 5 tunes, and sometimes the melodies, which is kind of funny, like with copyright on YouTube, some of the melodies are like 5 or 6 or 7 tunes, and then look, if somebody wrote the melody, they should get the money. But it's very funny. If you're like, you get hit with the copyright, you're like, wait a minute, that song's by like 18 different people, that melody. So anyway, I love the Tampa Red one because he plays it on slide, and it's just great. All right, yeah, there's lots of guys. Lonnie Youngblood, oh, man, Nance Lipcomb, I can't remember. Willie Brown, all those guys. It's cool, and I definitely got a lot of that. Kind of like a Kind-Hearted Woman a bit. That kind of stuff, that's great. That's kind of Robert Johnson thing. And just the influence on these tunes. And then a little later, I'm totally off topic here, but Slim Harpo, shake your hips, right? There's a kind of whole groove that you can get into, like Jump Back Mom, like. So all those kind of things really expanded into like Looking Good by Magic Sam. Now, I'm totally on a tangent. If you check out Magic Sam's Boogie, it's actually called Looking Good. And it's from the Newport Festival, I believe, and he's playing Earl Hooker's guitar. And it's just the guitar says Earl Hooker on it. Or here it's like a crappy Les Paul copy. And he does Looking Good. Sometimes on YouTube it's falsely named Magic Sam's Boogie, but it is the coolest thing. I think it's one of the greatest performances ever. I'm trying to like I'm gonna mess it up. It's gonna mess it up, but what's great is like so. That's it. I can't even do it. It's so good, and it's so groovy, and it's one of the greatest things ever. That particular recording of it, there's a lot of them, but that one in particular. And someone, Earl Hooker. Yeah, guys, you check it, Earl Burnside. But Earl Hooker, yeah, one of my favorites. Now, Earl Hooker, interestingly enough, he has a song called Blue Guitar, right? Pretty sure, and that is Muddy. I'm pretty sure this is true. Somebody might jump in, but it's the same exact recording as a Muddy Waters tune. What Muddy Waters tune? Oh, boy, I didn't expect to talk about this. I would have reminded myself what it was, but there's a Muddy Waters tune that is Earl Hooker. They just took the same track and Muddy sang over it. I'm sure I read that it is 100% true. If you listen to it, there's no difference. It's the same track. And the name of the Muddy Waters tune has just escaped me. Really super famous. Maybe somebody will chime in and know it. Yeah, and Lightnin' Hopkins, man. Oof, he's one of my favorites. So I'm thinking like, I can't put this pick. Like, yeah, try it again. It's hard on the electric. Wow. So that whole stuff, yeah. So digging into those guys really kind of changed the way I thought about playing guitar. Especially Lightnin' Hopkins. Like I said, I didn't think I would go down this road. I haven't played this stuff in a little bit. I listen to it all the time, but remember getting kind of on the fly, calling out some of these tunes and maybe playing a little bit of them. But so you think about just like a boogie, Shake Your Hips, which is, boy. What's his name? Shake Your Hips. I just said it before. King B. He did King B as well. Boy, sorry guys, I'm just being an idiot right now. So it's LaGrange, right? And it's hip shake, and it is any kind of boogie. So like, right, and then of course John Lee Hooker. That whole stuff, like, yeah. Slim Harpo, thank you so much, Tom. And FDG, thanks. Slim Harpo, and everybody else did Slim Harpo. Thank you. Just popped out of my head. Shake, what am I thinking? All those tunes, Scratch My Back, that's a great one. So learning all these things really helped me to understand groove much more. And on gigs, certainly knowing a lot of these tunes were really important. So if somebody called back to the beginning, the whole point of this, things about going my way or sitting on top of the world, I knew what they were talking about. And being able to play a boogie and knowing the original versions is really, really important. Really, really important because well, I think as guitar players, I feel like we should be a bit historic. You need to know the beginnings of this stuff. For me, you just do. Now, you don't have to love it. You don't have to want to put on Robert Johnson and go, this is my favorite stuff ever. I love it, but I can only take it in certain doses after a period of time because it's so sonically difficult to listen to me. Now, you guys all maybe know about the myth of Robert Johnson, that the recordings are sped up. So there's a bunch of YouTube clips that you can talk about Robert Johnson and sped up or slowed down. And because when I really got into it, playing with my National, I'm pointing because it's over there. I would plug it in, but I don't have a mic hooked up for it and we wouldn't hear it properly. And I'm learning some of these tunes, and he's in open G, rumor had it, of course. And then he would, but you're playing it, and I'm like, yeah, but that song is in B flat. So he would have either a capo on the 3rd fret, right? Or he'd be in open A and have a capo on the 1st fret, which, I don't know, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And then if you realize, or if you listen, his voice is very high, his vibrato is very quick. If you slow those down like a whole step, they sound much more normal. I'm not saying it's true. I like both sounds, but when you listen to the original ones, you're like, wow, that sounds much more like a normal human voice, as people always talk about his voice being really kind of ethereal. And if you slow it down about a whole step, it starts to come into play. You're like, oh, wow, actually that sounds like a person. It doesn't sound it's no less amazing, but just check him out. It's really interesting. You can't prove it either way. Nobody knows for sure, but it's really fun to check him out. All right, so I've got some questions. Jason Lockham. Robert Johnson was grew as a large part of everyone confusing with Tommy Johnson's crossroads story with Robert. Yeah, so the theory and the history of this stuff I love because it's so much fun. There's a lot of great books that were put out by Da Capo Press. There's a great book on Skip James. It's out of print. Maybe you can get it on the Kindle. It's called Devil As My Woman or something. I'm forgetting all the names of these tunes, which is a great minor blues, and it's just he's talking. It's interviews with him, and he's just fascinating guy. And a lot of these guys are like Bob Dylan. Like I think he got a lot of this from just making up stuff about their lives. Just you never know what's real and what's not. Skip James referring to women as glamios. Like just the language is amazing. Some of the books on Charley Patton, they're all kind of hearsay, and so they're fun, but after a while you're like, it's a really thick book on a guy who they really know this much about. So, all right. Tommy Johnson I love too, man. There's like, that asked for water, but he gave me gasoline. He had this really great high voice. So Tommy Johnson. There's so many of those great guys. And this is all pre the Chicago stuff, which I love too, like Muddy and Little Walter and all that. So I think this stuff's really important. But I think if you want to get into it, I think I don't say easiest guy, but one of the easiest guys to get into for me was Lightnin' Hopkins, because the recordings are just a little better. I like a lot of his stuff. I found it to be a little easier. Oh, Blind Willie Johnson. Highly recommend Blind Willie Johnson. Dark Was the Night, Cold Was the Ground. Nobody's Fault But Mine. And Ry Cooder always talks about Dark Was the Night, Cold Was the Ground for this amazing slide guitar stuff. And you read the histories of these guys, and you think you got it bad sometimes, and you realize your life is it's a different world. Blind Willie Johnson was blinded as a child because his father's girlfriend thought he was cheating on him, so she blinded him. She blinded his son during lye in his eyes. So, and he died of pneumonia after his house burned down. House. And he had no place to live. And so, yeah, and no hospital to accept him. So, you think about some of these stories, it's pretty amazing. So it's great to get back into that history. Wow. So I'm totally off on a total tangent. All right, so if there's any questions, thanks, guys. Hopefully that was interesting. Can you talk about a little bit what it's like being a gigging musician in New York City pre-COVID? Sure. It's not... I wasn't gigging as much as I used to. I started to gig a lot more. I got more into teaching, and Jason Locklin, who's online, was the master gigger in New York, playing all the time. I love gigging. It just sometimes can be a drag. Okay, just being honest. You don't really make any money from it, from like local gigs, and one of the problems is that all your friends are musicians, and they don't come see you play unless they come and hang out. So I know it sounds pretty dark, but unless you're that's rolling, it's a hard way to make a living. But I enjoy the actual gigs, just getting together and playing with some good musicians. Those are a ton of fun. But it's damn near impossible to make a reasonable living doing it. So that's. But it was, doing this stuff with Robin was a lot of fun, and touring can be fun. But, it's, like I said, guys, everybody says, you gotta want to do it to do that. Maybe Jeff could do a live stream on chord tones one week. I'm happy to. Done plenty of those on chord tones. Not say don't want to, but I've done a lot of videos on chord tones and chord tone soloing. How do you avoid the fromage of just moving from the major to the minor third on every pass? The cheese. How do you avoid the cheese of just moving from the major to minor third on every pass? Sometimes I just don't play the third. You know what I mean? Just sometimes I'll just play the fifth. So like, so there, I went in that chord progression, but I just played A the whole time. So as a soloist, I don't want to play those changes every time, because if you do, I think it becomes very predictable. So it's the beauty or in the skill of mixing both playing on the changes and playing over the changes. Hopefully that answers your question there, Keith. Okay, geek question. All for going. Hey, Ron, what's up? Ron Bask. How do you run the aux without headphones in ears? How do you keep the monitors from your voice making that weird phasing sound? I'm using little mics. So the mic is really close. Like if I crank the mic up, it would feedback, but that's what would get the phasing sound. So I also don't have my microphone coming through my monitors. You can't hear it. So the only thing that's coming through my monitors is my aux. I mean, you can hear the guitar stings through my microphone a little bit, but it's fine for this. That's sometimes why I use the headset too, because it gets a little more isolation. I don't have it incredibly loud. The louder you get your speakers, the more problem you're going to have with it feeding back and bouncing back and phasing. But the main thing is, so if I'm interviewing someone, which I've done, I always have the earphones in because it's too easy for their mic to bounce into mine, and then it gets into craziness. So that's the answer to that one. Okay. It's actually a beautiful guitar. Would you please talk about the year, model, etc.? Sure. It is an historic makeover 2019 R9. So it's just a regular old Gibson custom shop reissue. And Historic Makeovers is a company down in Florida that strips the guitar, uses original dyes and finish, so it looks much more legitimate, and it fades and it cracks. It's a thin finish, and then they put, for an upcharge, they put a Brazilian rosewood neck on it. We put through the binding and recarve the neck so it's more period correct. And having the great opportunity to play a lot of old bursts, this is as close as I've gotten. And, I can't afford an old burst. So that's a Historic Makeover, just a custom shop Les Paul. I don't want to say just a custom, but it's a custom shop Les Paul that's been redone by Historic Makeovers. And these are throwback pickups. So it's pretty tricked out, but I'm done with, I don't say done with Les Pauls. I love them, but I feel like I'm done. I can't say I don't want another Les Paul. Of course, you always want another guitar, but I'm very, very happy with the guitar. I think it's great. You guys can hear it's a great sounding guitar. Plays amazing, and it's nice and light, 8 pounds, 2.5 ounces, so I'm great with it, very happy with it. Okay, you visited, Dr. Smith, you visited Charley Patton's grave. Oh, that's cool. I've always wanted to do something like that, go on one of those trips and then follow some of those things. All right. Moving through some questions. Yeah, Snowy White, of course. So Jason Carter's asking us if we know who Snowy White is, just shorten it down. Yeah, well, I know Snowy White through Pink Floyd. He's never been a big solo artist here, but I knew him from Pink Floyd, of course, being their other guitar player on the road and a bunch of the records. And also, I think he played on like a Greg Lake record I had when I was a kid. That's when I first saw his name, like, who's Snowy White? And it's kind of like Snuffy Walton. You're like, I got to look up who this guy is. When it was difficult back then, I started seeing Snowy White's name pop up. And yeah, great guitar player. Great guitar player. Jump to the questions. Any thoughts on canned heat, Albus? Jordan, I don't know much about canned heat. Here's an interesting thing. Okay, I was always, when you go into the country, go to the country, baby, what you want? And he's singing that high-pitched voice. And I was younger, I'm like, why is he singing like that? And then you hear Skip James sing, and that's the way Skip James sings. And canned heat, those guys were integral to the U.S. blues revival period. So it made perfect sense to me knowing the context, which is kind of fun, what I was talking about earlier, about knowing the context of this stuff. So you listen to that Gone Out of the Country by Canned Heat, I forget the name of the actual title. It sounds like Skip James singing, and they were emulating Skip James. So I don't know much about Canned Heat, though, fully. I always started getting to the British guys a bit more after that point. I guess from Jason Pisano, creating a melody over the changes, would you play the thirds of each of the chords or the fifths, or just the notes of each chord? All of it. I know it sounds kind of like a lame-o answer. The first thing I would do is find the melody that you can run through. Like I said in this one. I would work that into your playing as a practicing situation. Just work through that line, figure it out, and that's a great basis. Okay, so now what would be next? Right, so that B is part of your E chord. Then you go to E7, if B's still there. Then A, and A. Then, so you have these lines that move down to the chords. Now I would start to look for those first. Play the chords, look how each note goes this way, or each note can go this way, and start to examine that. I talk about that in great detail in my chord tone soloing course, and playing the changes. And Solo Explorer. Solo Explorer is more rock-based. I haven't done a full blues-based course in this. No, I have, kind of. Blues arpeggios. So any of those, but chord tone soloing gets you into the idea, as does, if you want to do a little more rock, Solo Explorer, a course of mine. I kind of talk about this whole method, and it's just in a bunch of different rock tunes. But I see the chords, I look for the melody, and how the chord changes, and which way the melody goes. And that's my framework for starting to nail those changes. Okay. Hopefully that was helpful. All right. Sorry. Sorry, a lot of questions here. Kenny Wayne Shepherd, 10 Days Out, Blues from the Backroads, do you like it? I don't know the record. I don't know a lot of Kenny Wayne Shepherd. I hung out with he and Chris Layton and David Grissom. That was fun. It's like, had dinner with Chris Layton and David Grissom, which was a ton of fun. Like, you played with Stevie Ray Vaughan. That was fun. And I met Kenny. He was super cool. It was at NAMM, and I played his prototype of his new Strat, which is really cool. I think he's a great guitar player. I don't know much of his records. My listening goes more towards, he's got that Texas-y Stevie Ray Vaughan sort of thing, and I don't want to pigeonhole him in that because he's a really great player and he's spectacularly good at that stuff. I lean more towards, the B.B. King-ish sound at this point, for lack of a better way of putting it. Does that make sense? But man, you've seen him live. He just killed it. He had a bunch of guest artists, and he just slaughtered all of them. It was one of those kind of moments of me and David were standing there watching it going, yeah, I wouldn't want to get up there right now. Because Kenny, that guy is really great. And the stuff I love about guys like him, he's so consistent. There's no mistakes. He just got up there and, just full bore, put on a great show and killed everyone. It was really great. Is it challenging to satisfy a producer when you hear the song differently and you feel your ideas makes more sense. You know, I haven't really had that fight too much because I haven't done a lot of session work in the sense of working with other producers. It's mostly been either I've been hired to play on something and you just play what they tell you, or they ask you, or if they're asking you, what do you think? You give them a few ideas, and then they tell you, yeah, that's the right direction, go with that. If it's somebody else's job, like somebody else's gig, then I'm the plumber, you know, I'm the hired guy, so it's not my place to say you should do this or that. On my own stuff, I end up producing it myself, or the record that Robin produced. Yeah, there was a bunch of times where I would give him a song and he would just say, nah, that's not, you can do better. Or this song should be half that tempo or a lot slower. So that was pretty helpful. Or I don't like that bridge and I kind of like it. He's like, nah. And so you just talk about it, but it's never been a situation where I was really unhappy with something that turned out. I'm sure somebody who's done a lot more session work would maybe have that feeling. I know there's rock bands that were forced to create records that they didn't really want to make. I've never been in that situation, fortunately. But sometimes the producer's right. Sometimes they're not, but sometimes they're right, you know? Okay. More questions going on? Looking back through. How do you construct an ending for a blues? Have a good foundation with rhythm, kicking tunes off, and turnarounds. You know what's pretty interesting is when don't forget that a turnaround is an intro and an ending, right? It can be 2, 3, 4, 1, right? So, right? Or it could be in the middle of the song, you know. Or the ending, right? You know, you want to work through them. So think of it that way. Any turnaround that you have in the middle of a tune works equally as well as an intro and an ending. So, and you just got to work them out, timing-wise. That's all. Yeah, okay. What color is your 594, and do you prefer that to the DGT? I thought it sounded fantastic last week. Yeah, you know, it is, I don't know, what is it? What is it? It's a charcoal burst. And it doesn't have a binding. Well, it's not a, there's no colored binding. Like usually that's that kind of lighter wood. This has got, it actually does have a black binding. You just can't see it. So, do I prefer this or the DGT? They're both different. Yeah, I love these guitars. Do I like this or the DTT better? There's things I like about both of them. This has got a wider neck, so that took a little bit of getting used to, but I really, really dig it. This is a shorter scale, the Gibson scale. One thing I do like about this better is just where the tone and volume knobs are. David's got it set up. I would DGT's over here. I would change the order of the positioning of the knobs on my DGT, which I probably might do. David's got the knob right here is the bridge pickup, and the knob right over here is the humbuck, is the neck. So on if you guys watch some of the shows, if I start turning it down, I'm like, ah, I'm hitting the wrong knob and everything. So I would switch it around and put a master volume in the DGT and 2 tones. That's how I would work it. But I mean, this sounds different than a Les Paul, you know? But I would say, I mean, if you're looking for something out of the box, you can't really beat at PRS, I got to just say, you know, like I've done nothing to this guitar. I haven't even touched the neck on it. It has never needed adjusting since I got it. Just out of the box, spectacular. Same thing with the DGT. I haven't done anything to it at all. You know, so that's really awesome. I did put, I had them put 10s on a DGT when they sent it out. 11s are too heavy for me. I don't have those kind of hands. And that's kind of it. You know, I love this. And do I have a telly? Yes, I do. I have two, actually, different kinds. I have this great tuxedo one I got from Michael Tuttle. I don't know if it's in tune or not. And my oldest Tuttle, actually, is this one. My hat on top there. There we go. Is this one, which I really love. Great guitar. This is, yeah, it's about 10, 12 years old, early on. So it's a one-piece ash, a Brazilian rosewood neck. It was like the last piece he had many years ago. I wouldn't say his guitar sounds particularly telly-ish. It does a little bit, but, and that's kind of what I like about this guitar. It's really like a, what do I say about this guitar? It covers everything. Like, it doesn't really sound super stratty. It doesn't sound super telly-ish. I don't want to say it doesn't sound like anything. It just sounds kind of like itself, and I've used it on, it's on the record now quite a bit. It's on It's Your Groove. That's this guitar, the more up-tempo tune. That's this guitar. So this is one of Michael's Firebird pickups. Remember years ago, I loved Johnny Winter, and I just wanted to kind of get that sound as much as you can without having a Firebird. And this is a DiMarzio something, noise-free. So what I love about this guitar is it's nice and light, and it doesn't make any noise. So this is in New York for a lot of stuff, a big rehearsal guitar too for me, because I could change tuning, it plays great, sounds great. So I look at this as sort of the utility guitar. And I don't mean that in a negative sense. I mean that like it covers every gig really great. So my other telly, Throwback, is sending me, I'm getting some pickups for that. I think that guitar needs just still kind of sometimes you got to find the right pickup for the guitar. Okay, there we go. Phil on the job, I see. All right. All right, let's go, guys. Sorry, I missed some of these things here. This is bad for your bank account. Sure. You know, these are things that I've also like acquired over decades, you know. Who do you rate as a great contemporary blues artist? Jeez. I would say, well, a lot of my friends, you know, I would say my favorite of all the, you know, contemporary blues guys, I think Matt Schofield's the best for what I like, you know. I just think Matt's amazing. I thought Matt was amazing before we became friends. I think Matt is the real deal, you know, he eats, drinks and breathes that stuff. So I think Matt is spectacular. Certainly Kirk Fletcher is great, and Josh is great, Josh Smith's great. But for me, you know, the kind of playing I really love, Matt's a great, he's got the tone, he's got the feel, he doesn't sound like anyone else, not that those other guys do. You get in trouble. I don't want to compare my friends or these players. Just Matt, when I first heard him, I'm like, wow, that guy's really good. So I would say Matt Schofield is probably my favorite. I don't know many of the super younger guys. There's probably some that are really great. I don't know. I'm most interested in people who have their own sound. And when I first heard Matt, for many years, he's had his own thing going on. So that's I'd say Matt. Okay. I need my soapbox. And I think this. I do love my DGT. I love the DGT. Okay, back to that. The DGT, what I love about it is it's more rock. It's more rockin' than my Les Paul, which is kind of like medium output, like very classic. That's a little lower output, the pickups. When I really like that on the PRS, the 594, on more kind of cleaner-esque sounds. And then the DGT is super heavy, it's rock. Like I love that guitar for playing straight on rock. It's amazing. So it's a lot of fun. My finger picking tone is amazing. Is awesome. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Thank you. Sound fantastic in each guitar. Thank you very much. That second total is sweet. Yeah, this brings to a funny thing. My Black Telly acoustically is great. It's great. So sometimes just finding the right set of pickups. This one just works great with these pickups. That one, sometimes you play it, you're like, I know this guitar's got more in it. Just like my Les Paul before it had the throwbacks in it. I'm like, I know acoustically this is kicking butt. And I had the original Gibson pickups in it. I didn't think they were very clean and very clear. And I put the throwbacks in and boom, it was it. So pickups have a lot to do when you know you've got a good guitar. And I know that Black Telly is a really nice sounding guitar. So I just want to experiment a little bit with the pickups. But, on a list of things to do. All right. Yeah, Earl Farr. Yeah, like that Telly sounds great. I want it to be more Telly-ish. All right. I think Matt. I mean, Jason was over. Lachlan is a Telly aficionado. He played it, and he said the same thing. He's like, it's got the bones. It's just the pickups need to be a little more something. Anyway, favorite Matt Schofield album? I don't know. I never know records. Something about time. That starts off in that minor blues, like. Yeah, that whatever that record is. I would try to play the melody. That one, you guys would know. I'm just really bad with. Everything just kind of pops up on iTunes and Apple Music, and I just play it. Okay, Tuttle wound the Fireboot pickup. Yes, he did. Michael makes these. Now I also just want to say. One thing that's really big, is really, really important, when we were talking about guitars and gear and all this, I think we talked about this, is if you got the option between a really great amp and a really great guitar, or an okay amp or one or the other, right? I would always lean towards the really good amp first, right? So I'm playing through a T-Rock, I'm playing through an aux, and I'm using like the Marshall 412 cabinet thing, which does it sound like a Marshall? I don't know, it just sounds good. So when I'm looking through fake guitar sounds, I just choose what cab sounds best and mess around with the mics. And I ignore the fact that it sounds kind of like a greenback, but it still sounds kind of dumbly to me. I don't know, it just sounds good. This cabinet matches the fake cabinet in the aux, but it sounds good. So I don't get too worried about it. But I was getting that on a gig, like you guys have probably had this. You go to a gig and there's an amp there, and it doesn't matter what guitar, how great your guitar or your pedal board is. If it's a crappy amp, you're gonna have a miserable evening. A friend of mine had that thing. He said he went to a gig and I go, there's an amp there, and he showed up and it was like a PV Bandit. And he's got 2 rocks and he's got some old Fenders. He's got great gear, and he shows up and he's like, it was the most miserable gig ever. He was saying the same thing. I'd rather just have like a off the rack, decent guitar, like a Fender Strat reissue, like just a decent guitar and a good amp, a good tube amp. So my point is here, if you're going to invest a little bit, I would always go for that. So my point again is the reason why you're hearing the differences in the guitars is because I'm going through a good amp. Now, once again, good amp doesn't have to cost a fortune. I think that, Keith, if he's still online, we did that really fun thing on Beano on a budget where I'm just playing this Marshall Origin, which is very inexpensive, and I think it's a great amp. So you don't have to go nuts. Just a decent tube amp will make your guitar shine more than a great guitar into a mediocre or poor amp. All right. So, what throwbacks from my Les Paul? Those are the SLE 101s. That's the standard SLE 101s. In my black Tuttle Strat, I have the Peter Greens. So, you have a PV Bandit right now and you hate it. They are what they are, right? In the 80s, I had one, I thought it was the greatest thing ever. So your tastes change. But a really inexpensive tube amp. Plenty of good ones out there. We're in a golden age of gear where things don't cost an insane amount of money. Keith, you're still here. Excellent. Do I play any maple necks? Yeah, I have a Tuttle, which is over there. It's on the couch. It's a maple neck. I've usually just kind of stuck with rosewood, not for any particular reason. It just kind of went that way. And I talked to Michael, and I got the black one with 2 humbuckers with a maple neck because I wanted to get a little bit more of a full-purpose rock guitar. So I'm really happy with that guitar too. So usually, I don't know if anybody else has this problem. I do find maple necks are a little rougher on my fingers. I don't know why. All the frets are 6105s or 6100s, so they're tall, so I'm not hitting the fingerboard. But I just find like that the rosewood is just a little bit easier on the old fingertips. I know Matt Schofield has the same exact problem, except he says maple boards rip up his fingertips. I don't have it that bad, but they do feel, I feel it more. Okay. Do I ever play flat ones? Nope, never. I put the SLE 101s with the, Pete, oh yeah, okay, Phil, you did the reverse magnet with the SLE 101s. That's what I have in this guitar. So just real fast, and we can call it, because I could talk about this all night. I went for the Peter Green sort of thing on this, and the reverse wired. Right? Loose. So I have, I did a video here, if you look back in the archives, a live one, and I did something with my good friend Tim Pierce, and I talked about dialing on the Les Paul. So if you want to get deep into that, we talk about this guitar in particular. All right. Well, I take a last question or two. Any thoughts on digital sims? Yeah, and amp effects? Absolutely. They're great. I practice with one of those almost all the time. I'm not always running. For the show, I use my 2-rock into the aux because it sounds best. But if I'm sitting at home, for hours running my amp all the time, that, work in the tubes. I don't. I use plugins. I have plugins from Universal Audio, which I think are really, really great. And a company I love their plugin, very affordable, called S-Gear. And it's Scuffum amps. And if you check those out, I think it's like you can get a 15-day trial period. And I actually have a few presets in their library. And they're super great. I would highly recommend S-Gear. Okay. And let's see, what do John Schofield. Oh, yeah. John Schofield is, John Schofield. Look, anybody playing, any great player John Scofield, he's going to sound great through anything. And one of the things you have to learn to do, one of the things that I figured out finally at one point in my life was you have to play to what you have. So if I've got a crappy amp, or just somebody calls you up on stage to jam and you got a guitar and the action's high and you're at crap, you just go, all right, I'm not going to do this, this, and this. I'm not going to try to play fast. I just have to play to the guitar and have to play to the amp. And then when you get that, hopefully, level of maturity at times, the night becomes much better. And then you got to play to what the situation is. All right. Thanks for everybody for hanging out. I really appreciate just blabbing about guitar. This is always fun. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody stays safe. Thanks for everybody who joined me last week on that crazy day. All my courses, 20% off through my new website, revamp Jeff-McErlain.com. More to come there. Check out, I did the interview on the Guitar channel if you want to go see me more. If you don't have enough of me blabbing at you, you can watch that for another hour. And I will see you all next week. Appreciate everybody being here. Thank you so much to Phil. Thanks to Graham Ross right there and everybody who's been here. I really appreciate it. And check out tomorrow on at 5-Watt World, the video that we did together for keys for Comet amps. It's actually Trainwreck based amps. We've got a Comet and we have the Z-Rec. And they're great amps, yet more amazing, great gear that we all want. All right, guys. See you next week. Thanks.